case there's something going on. Dun, 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 dun.
Are we on yet?
I'm not sure. It's. I think we're streaming, but we're not live yet. But we will be.
There's a countdown someplace.
10, 9.
But I mean, it shows on the screen usually.
Yeah, well, there is for the we have 7, 6, 5 for the OBS here, but then
No. But I mean, Facebook gives you a thing too.
Well, that's what we're about to find out here.
Okay.
So anyway, everybody, hi. It's the Jimmy Doan Show.
There we go.
I think we're live now.
You think we are?
I think so.
Jimmy Doan Show, and so we're on Facebook this time.
That's right.
Which means, of course, I think you can type in something, and it should show up here someplace.
Very possible.
I don't know exactly.
I don't either.
Kind of an experiment.
Yes.
Jimmy Doan Show today is Wednesday, less than 2 weeks until the election.
That's right.
Number one, and with Councillor Curtis.
That's right, that's me.
And Jimmy Doan, and today is the 24th.
That's right. We have no bumper music today because Facebook is a copyright enforcer.
Well, I think I have suggested, and maybe if I remember to do it, there's tons of royalty-free stuff. So you might even have to pay $5.
Happy birthday, something like that.
No, copyrighted. Sorry, no can do. No can do. Okay, late explosive news. Although no explosions. Which I thought was hysterical. Apparently,
that is interesting.
No, here's what's interesting.
Okay.
It's bullshit, and I'll tell you why. It's really hysterical.
False flag.
Something like that. Here's the deal. Worst, in comic book guy, worst bomb maker ever.
Yeah.
Worst bomb maker ever.
Yeah.
I mean, right, in comic book guy, I'm telling you, apparently there have been a half a dozen or more of these things put out all over the place. They intercepted every one of them.
Right.
Their pipe, I don't know if they don't even, who knows if they even work. There have been no...
Well, we're going to find out.
I know we are, but what I'm saying is as of right now, here at 4 o'clock...
You're making the call.
I'm making the call, and I'm saying this is BS, and it's just, to me, I'm sitting there, because I'm watching the comments from the people, and of course they're all saying, this is the typical of the Trump people.
That's right, the Proud Boys, obviously.
That's right, blah, 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 blah,
Vote
blah.
Democrat.
And yeah, right, exactly. This is the October surprise,
right?
For them, they're trying to counter, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, the march, which is coming up here.
Oh, right, yeah, the Caravan.
Yeah, the Caravan, right. But I mean, what is hysterical about this is that they had a picture of one of them. I think the one they sent to Nancy Pelosi.
Looks like a bomb.
Of course it does. I mean, if I was going to do it, I'd put one of those alarm clocks on there with some wires.
Alarm, yeah, right.
That's what
you do if you wanted to really look like a bomb. But I mean, it's hard to imagine, even for me, that somebody would go to enough trouble to actually create explosive devices and distribute.
Who knows if they're explosive devices?
Well, I know. That's what we're getting there. Okay. I understand. I get that. What I'm saying is, if they turn out to be real explosive devices, I'm saying they were really sent by some right-wing nut job.
But you say that.
You're not going to that much trouble. I don't think.
Could be.
I mean, you could.
Could be.
We don't know. We don't know how far.
We don't know anything.
Right.
But the thing about it is, first of all, they all arrived at about the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, except maybe for the one at George Soros, I don't know. But anyway, the point, the thing is, they probably were mailed from the same place.
Well, they said they had like a return address.
Yeah. I haven't seen it all yet. Again, this is late explosive news.
Right.
Without the explosion.
Right. And that's the other weird thing. None of them went off.
None.
Like you said.
Zero.
Worst bomber ever.
Worst. Yeah. Just
even the two guys from Boston got their bombs to go off.
Right. Right. I mean,
two chumpy bomb makers, and this guy.
This out of a half a dozen of them, zero.
Right.
I mean, they were meant to be found. Just as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it seems the delivery method was like U.S. mail or something, or telegram, or.
Well, of course, and the other thing is, I think at least a couple of them were sent to places where they're automatically screened.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to send anything that even remotely resembles
ever since
the smallest little bit of powder in the envelope.
Seriously, after the ricin thing, there was in Tavares, I mean, population 62, we had an extra building where the mail to the courthouse to us was opened in advance by, I guess, some expendables, over in the other building.
You want a new job? This job pays.
No problem.
It pays $1,000 a day.
That's right. You're an immigrant, right?
You're an immigrant, $1,000 a day if you survive.
That's right.
If you make it through
Next
to
day
collect
of
your
the day,
check.
you get your paycheck.
That's right. Yeah. Next day you get your paycheck. That's right. At the end of the week. So anyway, that's the. We'll hear more about it, of course.
Well, it's interesting because everybody keeps talking about the heightened rhetoric, and are we 6 hours from civil war or something like this? I mean, I don't think we're anywhere close to any kind of actual anybody really taking up arms. But this is kind of interesting that this now here somebody is at least ostensibly sending out explosive devices.
Well, of course, the first thing that happens is tightened security. All of the homeland people, all of the officers, all of the first responders, second are all on high alert now, which means that if you're walking around, they're going to be able to stop you now. Are you the bomb maker? I mean, I don't know exactly, but what I'm saying is they're on hypersensitive investigation. So, this is what happens, when you have something like this.
Right.
So
There's nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that you never let a crisis go to waste, and of course I don't know if this is a crisis.
Well, like we said, look, I fully expect in this next 2 weeks to see the attacks, the counterattacks, the straw men, the counter straw men, the counter straw men, somebody's going to hire, somebody on the left is going to hire a bunch of people to call a bunch of people on robocalls and say, I'm for DeSantis, and, you Negroes need to vote for what,
Right.
They've
had, in fact, here in Florida, they have had some racist robocalls.
And what I'm saying is, I don't know, I'm not going to say, whenever I hear super inflammatory stuff from either side, I assume it's the other side.
Right. We used to look. When I was down here at the University of Florida, one of the things that you always did was the dirty tricks.
Right.
And what they would do, seriously, this
right
is in
before
the 60s.
the student government elections.
Just right before the student government elections, they would have some guy, this is like in the mid-60s, okay, stark naked, run down the street with the flag or whatever it is for the opposition.
Other guy, right.
Honest to God,
no, that stuff is... We're going to see that stuff on a level never before experienced. And this could be the first thing.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll find out, though. They'll trace it back. If the bombs were actually sent from somewhere, how hard is that to trace back? Look, it clearly wasn't like a state actor or anything. It had to either be... some crazy radical nut job on the left or crazy radical nut job
I saw where they said they had 2 people in custody.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah,
That was
already.
quick.
Well, that's the whole point.
Right.
That
should be.
How long did it take?
Seriously.
I'm sorry.
Well, right. All right. Well, so I guess we'll find about that later.
So the other thing that we have here locally,
Okay.
before I get into the other stuff that we want to talk about, is the Democrat Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams said she's sick and tired of hearing about the free market being the solution on issue of health care, and claimed, quote, there is no profit in doing the right thing. Now, she's a front runner, I think, in Georgia for the governor.
No profit in doing the right
thing. What she doesn't quite understand is that without profit, you get nothing.
Right.
Everything derives from profit.
What subject is she talking about?
She's talking about health care.
Oh.
We can educate bold and ambitious children, but our fundamental responsibility is to take care of the least of these, especially when the least are working families who only want a little bit of health care. Abrams says she's tired of hearing about the free market being the solution to the problem. I've never seen the free market write a prescription.
Oh, yeah, I heard this
in rural Georgia. She holds a slim lead, just 2 points, which is margin of error, over Brian Kemp, and lamented how the free market fails to adequately address everyday health care issues facing Peach State residents. I've never seen the free market show up and give someone metformin so they can have a little control over their diabetes before it turns into an amputation of their foot, which, interestingly enough, if this is a quote, there is spelled T-H-E-R-E.
Well, that's the publisher.
I know, it was probably the...
Hey, we got a listener. We got Gene. Hey, Gene.
Hey, Gene, buddy. So anyway, the problem is it says the problem with the free market is the free market needs to make a profit, and there's no profit in doing the right thing, which is interesting. Of course,
No profit in doing the right thing.
Yeah, and of course,
Talk about a misunderstanding of.
here's the deal: you know
Yeah.
you're doing the right thing if there's a profit.
Right. That's the only way.
That is the way you understand
It's
it.
the proof.
It's the proof.
You just
exactly
did double
right.
white power, you know that.
I mean, huh?
That's a.
Oh, right. Double white power. Yes, yes.
As you were making that point, and she's black, you know. So
That's right. That's right.
Oh my God.
No, seriously, it is hysterical because without profit, here the bottom line is, and people don't really understand this, mathematically, without a profit, you have what we call a hunter-gatherer subsistence society.
Okay.
Profit is what allows you to build the things that you can advance on and so forth, like an agricultural. That's when you can actually have somebody sit off the side and make the plow.
Right, because you got to have extra food
Exactly.
for that person to just
and that's
sit
the
there.
profit, and that's the profit. Without the profit, it's a subsistence society, and this, I mean, this shows you
No,
the
I agree. Look,
abysmal.
I had an argument with somebody on Facebook last week about the same exact thing relating to education. And
Yeah.
their argument was, if you take the extra money out of education for profits, then you cannot have enough resources left to educate the kids.
Not, of course, realizing that the money that goes into education comes from profit in the community.
Well, right. Well, when you're talking about the government
Yeah.
schools, that is to say, every dime that has come from that goes into education comes from a profit on a different business. But what
Or on people's profit. In other words,
Right.
taxes. The bottom line is what you have left over after food, clothing, and housing.
Right. But their argument that doesn't necessarily undercut their argument. Their argument is that you need some benevolent person in government to take these resources and reallocate them over to education.
Yeah.
Because like their concept is a business cannot survive and provide good service. It's almost like it has to be a nonprofit
Right,
in order to
nonprofit.
provide good service.
Right.
And of course, I mean, that just undercuts. I'm going to go with every business in the United States.
Even the nonprofit businesses, believe it or not, make a profit.
Well, they do. They pay their people.
They pay their people. I was looking I've got on my wall here.
They're not exactly the nonprofits of old.
No.
Right.
This is these people, the head of the Red Cross, some of these
Right.
other places like this. I mean, they're making $500,000, $800,000. You know, the CEO. So
Yeah, half of the charities are basically like these evangelical churches.
Right.
Which, you know, they're non-profit.
Right.
The guy's a multi-millionaire, flies around in private jets, rolls around in Rolls Royces, all that kind of stuff, wears his, you know, everything, and but no profit.
no profit.
My what I want to express to these people is they don't understand that if there's enough profit, if there's enough left over after you structure your business, then you can actually make your business better.
Right.
Everything gets better. The service gets better. The product gets better, and that's the way things improve.
Well, this is called, it's investing. You have to invest in the future. You can't eat the seed corn. You have to have some corn left over to plant for next year. And if in a business, you have to have some profit so that you can repair
Well, see, that
the
still
business as
doesn't-
it wears out.
But that still doesn't address their issue. What they're saying is that you get the seed corn from a different business.
You're
You
right.
don't even have to worry about that,
Right.
Because
From Monsanto.
right, well, whatever, you know, from Google or Yahoo or anybody else,
Right.
But those companies just make so much money, they just work. But education can't work. It's like they don't look at. I mean, what do they look at Harvard and they see Harvard? What do they think? Do they not? They must think, well, it's a charity and it's a one of a
They
kind.
have the largest endowment on the planet.
Well, right. My point is that these are private institutions. That Princeton, there's a bunch of them. Our top universities and colleges and schools, these all make profits, and yet they are still regarded as very high quality.
Well, not only that, when you think about it, the individuals make profit. That is to say, they make some money extra over and above what they're being paid. They have to pay taxes. I mean, and out of the what's left over after their basic needs.
Right.
That's a measure of profit.
I guess what I'm trying to get, I'm trying to offer the argument that somehow a business is a better arrangement than a nonprofit. in terms of its ability to provide services, where their argument is that the nonprofit is better.
It's more moral or something.
Well, it's just better
Because you're not wasting all that money on profit.
Right. Exactly. You're not, and I don't think. I mean, businesses streamline. They don't waste. That's not what happens in a business. They like you said, they reinvest the profits in a strategic way, only to improve the business's function and performance and provide better results and products and services for the customer.
Look at the iPhone, for God's sakes. In a decade, the iPhone has gone from the iPhone 1 to the 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. Infinitely better each time, just about, for roughly the same money.
Right.
And where do you think that came from? I mean, they had to pay thousands of people in the back room who did nothing, didn't actually manufacture the phone, but to design it.
Right.
And we had to pay them out of the profits.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, that's the.
Well, I'm sure we'll
talk about
this later.
Yeah, we will, because the people that shun or don't like the capitalist system don't understand what capitalism is all about.
Well, that's what I'm trying to sort of elucidate a small point of it here. That businesses. It's an engine. It doesn't absorb its profits. It generates profits. What it does, it creates extra, and it does that by providing a very valuable service to a voluntary purchaser.
Now, here's the deal. It turns out that if it doesn't do that, it ends up like Sears.
Right, and it goes down unless it's supported by the government.
Right,
and it's some kind of
like Solyndra. Of course, it still went down.
Right, but I mean, we have our schools, which are supported by the government now. No matter how bad they get, nobody's going to pull the plug. At least not at this point yet. They're still thinking.
We're going to find out here in 13 days when the elections. So locally here, our new tax for schools. So it'll be interesting.
Woo-hoo.
Okay, moving along.
Yes.
Broadband is a game changer for rural America. Somebody said, I forget who it is, said Pai, who's the head of the FCC.
Okay.
He's traveled to 41 states since taking office in January 2017 and said federal and state authorities need to have some sense of mission that they had back when they made a priority of providing electricity to every American. Now, interestingly enough, we had the rural electrification plan in the 30s or something. Also had a deal where the telephone, AT&T was a monopoly, but part of that was that they had to provide service to the hinterlands and so forth. But he said he saw it as an echo of the rural electrification efforts we saw in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago. What gets me about this is the market will figure out if Mr. Farmer, 100 yards out, wants to do this. And I've got a little anecdote about this too. At stake is not just whether someone in rural Arkansas can watch cat videos on YouTube or Facebook. It's about whether rural communities can survive. In previous generations, communities thrived based on their proximity to infrastructure, like roads, railroads, and airports, and rivers to distribute goods. Today, it's about having reliable access to internet and affordable high-speed internet. Communities without access will simply wither and die. I mean,
like the silver towns of old.
Yeah, right. I mean, they ran out of
get
silver,
up and leave.
The ghost town, right?
Well, the internet service stopped at the border. We dried up.
This is stunning because what's amazing, what they're talking about here is that people will vote with their feet and move away from places that do not provide high-speed internet access. They will leave, and that community will not survive.
And so, how many square yards of the United States is not covered in internet access?
Actually, well, it's good you should mention that because you can get some internet, maybe not high speed, but you can certainly get some internet over the telephone lines.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, we still have telephone lines everywhere. We
Yeah.
still have mail everywhere. It's not like the U.S. mail stopped. If you want to, you could still live in your house, no internet, no phone, just do everything by mail.
Yeah.
Mail order stuff from your Sears catalog,
which does not exist, unfortunately. No, but my point is that the market will figure this out, and so this is a scare tactic. The fact is that communities will dry up.
Right.
And they're going to, of course, where are these people going to go?
Your community will die.
That's right. That's right.
Will wither and die.
That's right. Vote for me.
That's right.
So anyway, interesting, a little anecdote here. When Galen, this guy named Galen Manners, Galen Manners, was offered a promotion at his job, he didn't want to relocate to the big city from his family in rural Kansas, where he helped his two brothers run their 2,000-acre farm in his spare time, if you can imagine. His employer gave him the option to work at home, but there was one problem. There was no high-speed, now this is around 2000, there was no high-speed...
Okay, wait, let me just stop right here. So we're worried about a guy whose family owns a 2,000-acre farm? Is that what... Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
okay.
right. Okay.
Keep going.
But he had another job, I don't know.
Sure,
whatever. And apparently it was in Kansas City, or in rural Kansas. He was 50 miles from his job, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Remotely, there was no high-speed internet to access remotely to connect him to the company's headquarters more than 300 miles away in Little Rock. So Manners, who had worked for a small wireless provider, built his own broadband.
I was just going to say, Jesus.
He built his own.
How high of a tower do you have to get? 300 miles?
I'm going to tell you.
I was just going to say, a couple hundred feet, come on, man.
Manners cobbled together his network using a dedicated connection from a phone company to the closest city called Parsons, population 9,000. He rented rooftop space on an 8-story building and one of the tallest in town, and engineered a private wireless network using a cell tower he had erected on his family's farm. Okay, wait a minute now. It gets better. Soon a cousin down the road can I get connected? He said, okay. Finally, very soon, 20 of his relatives were all connected onto this thing, and a business was born. Manners started a company called Wave Wireless in 2000. Okay, this is 18 years ago. Since then, the small provider has grown to serve 2,500 customers, including the parents of Federal Communications Commissioner Ajit Pai. Now, they were there, but they've moved away. But my point is, this was the market answering. Yeah. I mean, he's 60 miles away from a 9,000 population town,
right? And
he did it. Who wouldn't?
Right.
I mean, you got to be kidding me.
No, I'm seriously.
So this idea, this scare tactic, to me, it is stunning to me how people fail to realize the power of the market. Mm-hmm. And people's imagination. And the only thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, the only thing standing in the way of this, of course, are permits.
Right. I was going to say that, yeah.
The government, you have to have permission to do anything. I was just reading, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. Somebody has counted out 800 different permits nationwide, depending on where you are, a total in order to do various things, including things like a foot massage, new fingernails, and you have to have permits and license.
Oh, yeah. Wait, 800 for what were you talking about?
They counted up all of the different kinds of permits. These are the ones: city, local, state, and federal permits. And there's some overlap.
Right.
But there's some places have got more permits than others, or permits for different things.
Sure.
So when you figure those, like for instance, some towns you don't need a permit to do a foot massage, but another town you do, so they count that as a foot massage permit.
Right.
Even though it's only,
Okay,
so they said 800 of them.
That's all? I mean, I would think, once you start including...
Well, now these are licensing permits. I don't believe this has anything to do with your business permits or anything like that. I think these are just
seriously, you got to have... How many people, if you just want to change a wall in your house,
right?
How many people do you have to get permission from?
You have to get at least one, but you have inspectors.
I gotta believe it's at least 3.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
A fire guy.
Yeah, okay.
Probably maybe an electrical or plumbing or utility person or something.
Right.
know?
Oh yeah.
And
of course you got to probably give them a drawing.
Some kind of general building.
Somebody's going to have to see the drawing.
Dude, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, I didn't. How detailed the permission is, that's one thing. But,
right.
Your papers are not in order.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, I think it's fascinating to me that was a digression. Excuse me. Let me go back and say what I was doing was that the people don't understand how powerful the market is, and it has provided us with all the wealth. And it's been in spite of the fact that it's like the market reminds me a little bit of those pull tractor things where the big trucks get it and they pull this thing down the thing and finally they have to stop because of the drag on them. They have these things. They have them down in Ocala. I forget what they call them. They're pull contests or something, and they tie this big heavy weight on the back of these trucks, these 4-wheel drive monster trucks, and they start off running, and then this thing gets heavier and heavier and heavier until they stop, and you see how far you have to get down. But that's what the government does, is to weigh you down, and like we're seeing now, the swamp is starting to, unfortunately, kind of weigh down the Trump a little bit. But we'll see how that works. Okay, the Democrats have seized. This is kind of interesting.
Gene tells us that Hughes satellite network provides space-based internet access.
Really?
But not for free. I was going to say that.
No, of course it's not for free.
Right, yeah, but still, the point is it's space-based.
Is not free.
Right, but you can get it.
Yeah, you can
so,
get it.
You know,
right.
Your talent's not withering away.
No, that's right. You want your satellite phone? No problem.
That's it.
It's going to cost you a few extra bucks. And of course, what happens is, as more and more people do something like this, if you think there won't be competition, I mean, think about it.
Oh,
these guys are popping the new rockets here.
Dude,
the private guys.
The guy should be thanking his lucky stars nobody had internet access out there. Now he has a 2,500 person business.
Right. He filled a need.
That's it.
So anyway, Democrats, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats have seized on recent comments by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in a round of media interviews after Treasury Department reported that the federal budget deficit increased 17% year over year to almost $800 billion, which is, we'll see. And what Mitch said is, it's disappointing, but it's not a Republican problem. And he's right. The simple fact is, he said, it's a bipartisan problem. Unwillingness to address the real drivers of debt by doing anything to adjust those programs. Now, what they've said is that Mitch and the Republicans, the horrible, nasty Republicans, want to cut or reform Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, or whatever, entitlement, Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which, as we've talked about before, comprises about 60%, almost 2/3 of the entire federal budget. Now, if you're gonna reduce the budget, either you're gonna cut the other 900 programs, or you're gonna have to slice up the whether you like it or not, on two things. First of all, they're unsustainable. And you can sit there all you want and say, I promise to do this and I promise to do that, and you can be the little boy in the dike with your finger in the dike, and you're going to hold back the thing, but it's it's going to crash. And you can promise all you want. You can stand there and hold the water back as it floods over you. And so my point is that what he's saying is, They have chastised the horrible, nasty Republicans, because they want to cut your Social Security. They want to cut your Medicare. And what I'm saying is, you really have no choice, number one. And number two, unless the Democrats come on board, nothing will get done. End of story. And of course, seriously, it's got to be bipartisan.
No, I wasn't questioning that. I was thinking, as you were talking about that, about an article that I saw this week on Facebook by a guy named Larry Allen, who said, I'm a socialist. I'm sorry. Little Freudian slip. I'm a liberal, and here's why, basically. And he laid out 16 points as to why he's a liberal. I went ahead and answered them all. You can find them on our webpage at Curtis Elmore / papers.
Okay.
And there's a little essay there. But the gist of it was this. He started off with something that cuts against what you just said, which is his entire concept of the government is that we, as Americans, help the neediest among us.
Right.
Period. That was it. He even wrote out PERIOD.
Okay.
You know how they did it to really make his point. We help the neediest among, and from his perspective, the government was useless and just what's it for unless we're going to help those people. In other words, the transfer of that money from the rich to those needy is the purpose of the government.
And that's in the Constitution where?
Nowhere, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The point is that's that's I think a giant distinction that is between at least guys like this and people you might call conservatives, which is that all of the rights associated with the Constitution really are they don't cost anything. Your right to free speech, it doesn't require anybody to do anything else.
Right.
Your right against unreasonable searches and seizures prevents them from doing something, but
Right.
it doesn't require anybody to do something.
Right.
The only one that's sort of a positively interpreted right is the right to an attorney, that was a latecomer. This was
Oh, yeah.
but and that's only in certain circumstances when the state is already coming after you and they're going to try to put you in jail. But my point is that you don't have a right to other people's stuff.
Right.
And
That's right. When they say, for instance, you have a right to health care. I'm sorry.
you can't.
You can't
It's
because
impossible because it's a right. That's a right to property. And in fact, healthcare has an infinite cap on it. I mean, if I have a right to healthcare, that means if I'm about to die, I get to sit there and say, healthcare on me now, healthcare me and make me survive.
Well, of course, the question,
you have to.
One of the things that happens with something like that, again, is the gun in the equation. That is to say, if you are going to compel the doctor
Right.
at the point of a gun
Right.
to provide you with health care.
And they don't go that far. Well, no, that's not what the socialists want.
That's what they're going to get.
Well, but it's not quite there. What they do is they take the gun, instead of going to the doctor, they go to the people and they say, give us the money. And then they take the money and they go to the doctor and they say, take this money and go do whatever we want you to do.
Right.
But the gun is still used. It's just not pointed at the doctor, but it's pointed at the people, which is just as bad.
Right.
But
There's a gun in the equation.
the point is, but to this guy, the ends justify the means.
Ooh.
He's totally okay using the gun because he's going to help good people. Needy people. Maybe not good, but needy people.
Boy, I'll tell you.
I'm
When you
just
talk
telling
about
you.
slippery slope.
Well, that's that. There's no slope. He's off. That's
Yeah,
off.
that's right. That's
on the other side.
It's Thelma and Louise after they went
Yeah, I mean that is off the cliff.
off the cliff.
Because once you have decided that people are entitled to education, health care, Medicare, Social Security, housing, car, BPI,
phone,
anything that is a positive property right, internet, anything that requires payment of money, you've crossed over into a place where you no longer respect either the right of property,
Right.
the right to property, I should
Right.
say. There's no right of property, but the right to property or the right of equality. That is to say,
what the real objection is, you don't have a right to your own self. If they can compel you to do something, that's me.
well, here's the way that works out. It's not like they're compelling you to do something, but what they're doing is they're compelling you to do whatever it is you do to make whatever money it is you make, because they're going to take that money.
Yeah.
Because they're going to compel you to do that. Like I'm compelled to pay every year the penalty into the healthcare system
Right.
because I don't pay the taxes and don't have health insurance. So they compel me to do that, and that's what they would do. And it's that's where the compelling comes in, and that means you've authorized force to be used against all of us,
Right.
And it's just too
And of
far.
course, what's interesting is nobody really sees the connection between my taking a gun out and running down the street here and holding up my neighbors and saying, give me money,
Right.
and having the sheriff do it.
Well, and here's the thing. Let's say you went to your neighbor and you said, give me money. I'm going to give it to my church.
Yeah.
Good people. I'm
Yeah.
going to give it to the poor and the needy, but you're going to give it to me right now. And that is literally the structure at its core of the
At its
entitlement
core.
system.
That's the
now,
key.
Here's the trick. The reason why.
that.
Huh?
No, I don't mean that. Wouldn't go that far.
Well, and they probably wouldn't if they knew that was going on. But the trick comes in because everybody in that mindset assumes that the government already has the money, and the reason they assume that is because they're going to take it through the taxes, and people have already accepted the concept of taxes.
Right. Well, that is in the Constitution.
Well, exactly. And so arguably, it is in the Constitution that the government has the right to take your property, and then we're just arguing over what to do with the money after that. And so you know, if you're going to argue that the taxes are okay, even for stuff like war or border protection or whatever, then you have to admit that they could be okay for entitlements, because it's the same kind of thing. They've already taken the money. The harm's already done. So then it's just a question of, you know, where the money goes after that. I mean, who really cares?
We have to do some more harm.
Right. Well, that's, you know, if it goes into wars and bombs and stuff.
Well, not only that, even when they do into housing, when they put people in Section 8 housing, for instance, there's harm to the neighbors and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there is collateral damage in entitlements and stuff, you know. But my point is that it's easy for the people on the left to justify entitlement spending, because it's easy for the people on the right to justify border spending or defense spending.
Right. And of course, a lot of people don't see the connection, and we try and make it obvious here. Okay, so anyway, I thought that interesting that our local senator Bill Nelson has signed on to this as well. Matter of fact, all the Democrats have. Okay.
Wait, before you go, okay. Nancy says the government is running bare bones now.
Yeah, right. On $4 trillion.
That's right. Let's see. Gene says, just make budget a percentage of the GDP. Let whoever's in power spend whatever they want, but no more than is budgeted.
It is a percentage.
Yes.
It already is a percentage of GDP. I'm sorry, it's 40%.
You never know.
Yeah, what do you mean? We already have that. Wait till it gets to be 100%.
Yeah. I'm saying that no spendy on nothing, man. But
no, again, it's interesting. This I thought was an little anecdote here. A man who allegedly groped a woman during a flight told authorities after he was arrested, the President of the United States says it's okay.
I have authorization
from the President to grab women by their private parts. The passenger, named here, was likely referencing Donald Trump's remark on Access Hollywood. The complaint filed, which was the one when you all know what he said. It's okay. I can grab them by their pussy.
Yeah.
Okay. The complaint filed Monday alleges that Alexander made abusive sexual contact with a female passenger on the flight from Texas to whatever by touching the passenger's breast without her permission.
Mm-hmm.
She accused this guy of he was sitting behind her, and by touching her no less than 3 times. That she saw a hand, had thick fingers, were hairy and dirty fingernails, blah, blah, blah. He appeared before a federal court in Albuquerque, New Mexico on Monday and remains in federal custody, pending a preliminary and detention. If found guilty, he faces a maximum penalty of 2 years in a federal prison and a $250,000 fine. And it seems to me that's a little strong. I mean, he's in custody. It's bad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you fondle somebody on the airplane and all that, and you get slapped maybe or something. But I think
how many years?
2 years.
2 years. Yeah. Well, I think it's 5 in Florida.
Could be for fondling a woman.
Yeah, I spoke before about how harsh theoretically any penalty is.
Right.
I mean, the maximum is just way off of the charts there. So.
And that's, and of course, the DAs love it. Because what they'll say is you can either go to jail for the rest of your life,
right,
or you can admit guilt and we're going to suck you away for 18 months.
That's exactly right, or something lighter. And this guy, I mean, look, if this guy has no criminal background and his crime was grabbing a girl by the boob or something without permission, he's going to get probation most likely and like a class. The scary thing is he might register as a sex offender of some type.
Ooh,
and if he does that, man,
he's doomed.
Well, it just shows up everywhere. I mean, every time you get pulled over for anything,
well, not only that, you can't live.
Google you can't live. Yeah, exactly.
School, church, whatever. You got to live under a bridge.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And and there's different levels of that categorization.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are, and of course, in different states as well. Hopefully, they wouldn't force him to do any type of registration for that type of a conduct. Can
you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly the airlines is going to ban him.
Really. I mean,
private.
Private. Yeah. They can say
if they wanted to. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's another thing for the other overreach fun we can have here. Let me see how we're doing on time. Oh,
we're good. We're good.
Brothers in Michigan are facing nearly $500,000 in fines for allegedly removing more than 1,400 trees from their 16-acre property without permission.
I was just gonna say.
Without permission.
That's
Wait a minute.
right.
They removed the trees with the intention of creating a Christmas tree farm, and their attorney, Michael Powell, told the people here. The attorney said the land was filled with invasive plants. This is a case about misguided overreach, unavoidably about whether people who own property are allowed to use it. And of course,
Actually own property.
right, they own the property and had trees on it.
Right.
They cut down, and they're planting. What they did is they exercised. Apparently, they thought they came under some farming exemption.
Right.
And the local tree removal law to clear historic pasture, whatever, I forget exactly. Anyway, what they wanted to do was they removed 1,400 trees, and they are moving forward to plant 2,500 trees, and have already planted 1,000 for their Christmas tree farm.
Mm-hmm.
So they need a permit to remove the trees.
Right.
Now we have an arborist here. I take it back. I don't know if we still have an arborist.
Well, we've got rules about.
Oh yeah, the diameter and whatever it is.
4 inches.
Is that all it is?
4-inch tree, you got to get permission.
Yeah, it's 4 inches in diameter. It's certainly not circumference.
No. It's diameter.
Yes, diameter for sure.
Yeah.
So the township also requires landowners to replace any removed trees before cutting them down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wait. I'm just going. Let me get this straight. You've got 1,400 trees on 16 acres. Now I don't know about you, but I tell you, that's a lot of trees.
Yes.
And now you have to go out there before you cut any down. You plant new ones, which are like saplings. I mean, so anyway,
Well,
the arborist, the local arborist, estimated the number of trees cut down by doing a mathematical comparing of similar properties. This is like, when you
Right.
I mean, this is like what you do when you
Real estate.
right? Yeah, your house is worth so much because this house, that house, and the other thing.
They're neighbors.
So they unfortunately the authorities there. They identified the number or types of trees and did some math
Yeah.
to figure out approximately how many trees. I mean, they could have, of course, what you could have done, I suppose, to go count the stumps.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, what they probably did was one of those a regional analysis thing.
I know.
You walk off 10 feet this
Yeah,
way.
right, and then you extrapolate.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. So I just have to laugh.
Well,
so
what
anyway,
sucks about it is just.
a permit.
Well, yeah, for cutting down a tree. And I mean, what I just always am frustrated with is that there's a tree authority czar guy,
Right.
and the tree and he apparently is just better. He's just a better person.
Oh yeah. Well, they've written laws for. He's got a book.
Right.
That tells him what to do. I mean, how like in here.
Well, whoever wrote the book then is better.
Right. That's right. In other words, here in Gainesville, for instance, they get the calipers out and see if
Right.
it's 4 inches,
Right.
or whatever. I mean,
So there's no equality in terms of my ability to evaluate the health of my own land
yeah.
versus this arborist guy or just
Yeah.
some random city official or the guy who wrote the book on
Right.
it.
It says right here in the book.
Yeah, and people say, well, he's got a license or whatever. Yeah, well, guess what? The guy who gave him a license didn't have a license. Or somebody up in the friggin' up
Didn't
the
have
path
a license
didn't have
originally. Yeah.
So-
The original license came from somebody who was not licensed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cole said the brothers have few options. And Cole is the bureaucrat. Either pay the fee, Trun, to plant new trees across the township, or plant replacement trees, or a combination of both. So, they can either pay the money or plant more trees, and that's it. End of story. You have no recourse. But this guy.
Well, I talk about this in my book, Free Public. If you want
is
to.
that right?
Yeah, I said, what would you have to do? Like, if you want to change something like this, your yard, how many people permission do you have to get? How much would it cost you? How much could it cost you? Could you be ultimately denied? Is there an appeals process?
Right.
Could you be denied in the appeals process?
Right.
Then what do you do?
Well, then what they've had this happen here, of course. I forget exactly what it was about, but the appeals process went, and the local magistrate denied it, and I forget what it was, but now they had to go into the court to do it, and then when the court turned them down, then where you go on up, I guess, to appeals courts.
But my
it's
point
expensive.
is that right, and we have a decision in our court system called Chevron, referred to as Chevron, which basically is one in which the courts will very often defer to administrative agencies.
Right,
They'll
that's
kick it
right.
back out and they'll be like, no, sorry, well, you don't even get the court relief on this one. I mean, theoretically, you could have court relief, but even then, you could be denied. Your appeal could be denied, or your appeals, you could go all the way to the Supreme Court and then have it denied. And then what do you do? And then, sorry, you can't change your own yard.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because here I have to have, we're coming up, by the way, in another week and a half or so, another game.
Oh, yeah.
And so we park cars on the lawn here, but we have to have a permit, although we've managed to sidestep it, permit, by making it voluntary.
Well,
so anyway,
we don't charge.
no, we don't charge, not really. Donation, maybe.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to get your car
Some people
scratched.
leave money around.
Yeah, what are you going to do? That's right. Okay, now we're moving on to the next thing here, which is probably one of the big pieces of news has to do still with the murder of the guy in the consulate in Turkey.
Oh, that's still news? Okay.
Yeah, believe it or not, there's still because what's happened, apparently there have been some admissions and some whitewashes, and a human rights group.
Look, this is so obvious. Go ahead.
Well, human rights group urged the global community to reject Saudi Arabia's attempt to whitewash in the death of the journalist. Human Rights Watch, of course, rejected their most recent explanation that he was killed when a brawl broke out. He accused President Donald Trump of providing the Saudis to cover for their ludicrous explanations, which they were. They were ludicrous explanations.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
They kept changing.
Of course. Look, it's always ludicrous when you kill somebody.
Well, but
your explanation is, hey, the swamp gas reflected off of Venus.
Yeah.
And
well, apparently they kept changing it. That was a real problem. It was a brawl at first, and then it was something. There were about 4 or 5 different reasons why the guy was killed and cut up and sliced up, and they found some body parts in some yard somewhere. I mean, who knows what?
Right.
But anyway, they're always talking about how Saudi Arabia has repeatedly lied and so forth. The operative, whom the Turkish official alleges was what they did in order to prove that the guy walked out, apparently, according to this, they dressed some guy up in the mustache and coat and everything and had him on video walking out of there, and apparently he was obviously not the guy. So they thought, appeared to be wearing a fake beard and glasses. So anyway, the idea was that this is still a news thing, and of course what I've said is, first of all, when you consider the Saudis are in the process of bombing the crap out of their neighbor and killing people right and left all over the place, and this was a dissident, this was a Saudi citizen on Saudi territory. They killed their own guy and on their own. It's not like you can't do that. It's not for me to tell you can't do it.
It's a non-story to me. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy, bad for the journalism, bad for all the stuff, but this is a non-issue. They kill in foreign countries, especially ones like that, dictatorships. They execute journalists regularly.
Regularly. I don't know how many has been, but in the last 10 or 15 years, literally there have been a couple of hundred.
I
don't know if somebody I showed with the. I was actually surprised that it wasn't a little bit more, but it was only.
I would
like
think
100
at least
or
a few a year.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, in the last decade or more in the war zones, there have been as to say collateral damage. So who knows? Okay. Next, one of my last item, Sunday. On CNN's State of the Union, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti told host Jake Tapper that his city, this is in Los Angeles, his city needed leadership from Washington, D.C. when asked about the 50% increase in homelessness in Los Angeles. I think Garcetti said, I think they're linked together in a national conversation in Washington, D.C., where you see more homeless per capita than you see in Seattle, San Francisco, and you see in red and blue cities. We have a mental health crisis. People are dying in our streets from opioid addiction, and I'm proud of our voters in Los Angeles who passed apparently some laws or whatever, and they're opening up new beds for the homeless. So you wonder, wait a minute now, let me just get this straight. You're going to feed them, and you're going to house them, and you're wondering why there's more.
That's
and of course, so we've had it happen here in Gainesville too. Our typhus numbers are about the same as they've been in the last 10 years. Ooh, boy, that's good. and we're focused on preventing homelessness. So to understand homelessness, we really need leadership from Washington. I'm leading a group of mayors around the country saying we need a housing policy to take care of the least among us, and a Washington that will listen absolutely the link between national and local politics. Now, what they're saying here is go to Washington and get the money. That's my money.
Well,
I got homeless here.
Let's be clear. What they're saying is vote for Elizabeth Warren because she's giving out houses.
Right.
All right. That's what's going on here. This is a push for that. I mean, the homeless situation is pretty bad in LA. There's a bunch of people
in LA and San Francisco.
Yeah, I haven't been to San Francisco.
You see the pictures.
I used to live in LA.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, that was years ago. You know, apparently it's gotten a little worse since you were there.
Well, I was there just a couple of years ago.
Okay, well, yeah. in the lifespan of in the lifespan of a bee, that's forever.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, but again, this is what the governments do. It's always a hoot. Let's say we've had here our homeless solution was a 10-year homeless solution, which is now going on 13 years, has not been cured yet.
Well, it can't be cured. What people forget or fail to understand is that humans are born with nothing but themselves. That means we are continually added into society as resource-free people, except for your own individual resources. Mm-hmm. And the concept behind capitalism and everything is that you get to trade your resources in the form of your energy, your time, and your effort, your service, and you get to keep whatever you make from that.
Right.
But my point is that there new people all the time have to start at zero all the time.
Well, you talk about when somebody inherits $1 million.
No. When babies are born.
Oh, okay.
When babies are born, you got nothing.
Yeah.
And so there's a constant replenishing of homeless people all the time, and so everybody has to climb out of homelessness. Every single person. So. You have to. I mean, but maybe you ride the wave, obviously, from your parents to.
I was going to say because when you're born, I had a home from
Yeah, but look, it's.
I had a home before I was born.
My point, though, is that if you get to a certain age, like my age, you don't have no. It's.
Okay, but whose fault is that?
That's right.
They're not even going to go there.
No, but seriously, every human has to organize themselves in a way that provides their home. That is, it's like, and it takes a certain level of competence. And there's a certain group,
not only humans. I'm sorry, every animal, every organism,
everything. But even humans, as bright as we are, a certain group, a certain percentage, fail to do that. And some of them, a lot of them, in fact, I've worked with a lot of homeless people. You defend a lot of them going out of the public criminal justice system, and a lot of them, they're homeless because they're dealing with other parts of their lives, and they're not like without shelter. Okay, they often move between friends and families' houses and things like that, and as you say, there's lots of municipal shelters and things like that. So it's not like they're. I mean, there are plenty of people out in the streets, but most of the homeless people are not out on the streets every night.
Well, of course, it's interesting when you say out on the streets.
Of course, it's all regional. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well, even out on the streets, when you go down the street there in the Tenderloin district or whatever, they're tents.
Right.
So
well, these days you get tent stuff pretty cheap, and but a lot of those people. I mean, the worst of them are people who just don't even cope with reality.
Well,
so you're never going to give them a home or anything. That's just what they are. They're just a person that lives outside.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it's interesting when you interview people. And I've been on the streets for 18 years.
Right, exactly. You can't. And I know that a fair percentage of those people are people who are down on their luck or just lost this or that or whatever. Well, but a much higher percentage of them are the guys who are in the 70s IQ and they've been hit in the head by a bomb
the veterans,
or something.
That are home. That's tragic.
It is. But it's never no amount of money that you throw at that problem is going to solve that problem for those people.
Oh, how can you say that?
It's just never going to happen.
But you talk to the people down here. They claim that all they need is more money.
Right, I know.
And it'll be cured.
Mm-hmm. Good luck.
Yeah. So, all right, well, I'm done.
Well, we got one more very important thing, which actually dovetails and wraps all these things up together.
Okay, good.
And that is the caravan. The caravan is still on the way. Okay? Now, they've got two choices. This is going to be a shit show, and I am convinced this is going to be bad because, as we said before, Trump is entrenched on the build the wall philosophy. Right. He almost has to keep these people out. But I don't care if these people have been paid by the Democrats. I don't care if the whole thing was set up. I don't care. These are humans that are approaching our border with nothing, and they are going to need assistance. They're going to need...
They're getting it on the way up.
I know they are. And they may get it in Mexico. So a lot of them will probably stay in Mexico. But there's nothing that should prevent us from helping these people.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, like, here's what I would do if I was Trump. You ready? This is what I would do. I know this is going to be, and he'll never do this, okay? But here's what you would do. What I would do is, I would go down there with the National Guard and a whole bunch of tents, and I would say, look, here's the situation. And you just blame it all on the Democrats. You just say, look, this whole thing was set up, and they're coming. But we have to help them because they're humans and we're humans and we're going to help them. So we're going to set up a tent city, a refugee camp, and it'll be right inside or right outside the border, whatever it is. And you just let them all in, and you say we're going to process them as fast as we can with all these extra resources. We're going to pour a bunch of resources into it and process them as fast as we can by all our normal laws. We'll have some special amnesty grant or whatever. And then what he says is, look, he just turns it around. He says, the only reason they're coming here is because we don't have a wall.
Yeah, no, that's true.
If we had our wall, the people would not be coming here. It was a setup. Go down there, vote, get my people in, and get the funding for the wall. We'll build the wall. We'll do it. But for now, we have to let the people in because you can't just leave 14,000 people at your border, because you know what? The camera crews will be down there every single day interviewing a new child. So, who do we have here? Yeah, little Johnny. But you haven't had a sandwich today, have you? Don't feed him yet. You know, it's like the old Sam Kinison thing. They will let this thing build. This will be the ultimate Occupy Wall Street group if they're just sort of excluded. And that's the best case scenario if he doesn't let them in. Worst case scenario, as we talked about before, is that the military go down there, there are a bunch of guys down there, and some people get shot up like Kent State or whatever it is. You know, look, if they're going to go that direction, then we have the other solution, which we talked about last time.
This is the great solution. This is my solution.
So the United States announces we are attacking the caravan.
Right. Well,
the caravan has been deemed to be an existential threat.
Right. Of
invaders.
Right.
Okay. And we are attacking. So prepare for an attack. And then we hire one World War I Sopwith Camel.
Sopwith Camel. That's right. With the machine gun.
With the 2 7mm machine guns.
That's right.
That's what he's got.
And what he does is he goes through and he's straight in front of him.
Oh yeah.
Nobody gets hurt.
Oh no. Well, no. You'd have to. I think you'd have to. That's why you do the announcement at first. Yeah, that's why you have.
Well, the other thing I thought about, of course, first of all, you go through there. I mean, here's a guy that comes in and and he strafes in front of these people. You do the whole deal. Okay. Oh, that's right. And they start running.
Right.
The other thing, of course, is you can get not the Sopwith Camel.
No caravan would ever reform.
No, that's right. Well, the other thing is, because we've talked about this in some other venues, some other ways of doing this, and that is the most important thing I would do is to get not a Sopwith Camel, but the French plane or the triplane that
the Fokker.
Yeah, the Fokker plane. And I would arm it with paintball guns.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, this way you'd be able to tell, and you'd come down to
right.
And you'd have different colors, on the different ones, and that way you would know that if this person, if they did get across, you'd know that. And of course, the paint would be the stuff that they put on the dollar bills,
stuff, right?
On the dollar bills when you rob the banks.
Yeah. So that purple exploding.
Right, exactly right. So this is the whole point. I mean, this is great news. This way we can identify who's what, and I don't see a problem here.
Well, that's their only other solution is one Sopwith Camel versus the Caravan.
I mean, and can you? I mean, can you imagine somebody who wouldn't volunteer to be that pilot?
Well, I can't imagine who you would get. Well, I mean, I still think I still think the. I know it's dark, but I think it would be funnier if it were live ammo, and then I would love to see the CNN reporters. Well, here comes the plane.
And see him run for it?
Oh, well, well, just the abject terror in everyone's eyes as the plane unloaded its first salvo there. And people, you get them on the bridge, they're just diving off the bridge. I mean, it would be an epic 2-minute video.
Oh, I'm telling you. And the thing about it is, the nice thing about that, if you had the right cameras, you could use it in a real film.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, sure. You have a couple of film crew cameras,
exactly,
biplanes on the side.
Yeah. So like Howard Hughes did when he made his thing,
Oh my God, that's so dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's that or let him in.
So anyway, we've got 13 days. So the question will be, if they don't get here before the election, what happens? They will. They will. Yeah, because I saw some pictures where they're loading up on these.
Yeah.
What's funny about this, I saw them piling into this van, this fairly good-sized van. And what's funny is that, not funny, this is not funny at all. Every once in a while, they'll find one of these trucks with dead people in Texas.
Right, yeah.
Because...
Well, that was one of the canvas-covered ones. It wasn't like a semi.
No, this one was like a...
Oh, okay.
They've had a bunch of them that are open,
right?
That are literally just flatbeds.
Yeah.
But then they had one where they would open up the doors and everybody was climbing in there.
Pretty scary.
Oh yeah. So.
But they'll make it. They'll at least a couple thousand. There's another.
As one person said, if you don't give them any benefits, they're going to have to work. But of course, then the problem is they're going to be working for $1 an hour. And put everybody else out of work. Who knows?
Well, look, I'm telling you, man. What I would do, I would call up the governor of New Mexico, and I would say, "Get ready, they're coming in." Look, Florida absorbed 125,000 Cubans in the span of 6 months, and our economy was transformed.
Yeah.
And it's been a fantastic revolution for us in Florida because of those 125,000 people. They could do the same thing in New Mexico, Southern Texas, or Arizona. You'd be like, look, come on in. We're going to set up just a city right here. We're a new city, brand new city. Look, and what you do is what you'd have to do.
Tried that in Lebanon, and it's not working.
Well, and here's the difference. At every refugee camp around the world, they don't let the refugees own the land.
Okay.
And what you would do is you'd literally go into a piece of desert that is nothing there except for desert, and you would carve it up and you would say, everybody gets it. That's it. Come on in, 20,000 people.
And what you do, of course, is you do that on quote government land. Of course, you'd hear the screams about that, but still, when the government only owns like 50 million acres.
Exactly.
And so you take 50 acres.
That's it. Everybody gets a quarter acre, and a new city right there. Build your church, and what you would do is this. What I would do is, I would do an experiment in non-permitting, non-zoning, freedom to work, freedom of everything. You just say, look, do whatever you want. Just do whatever you want. Like it's your little area there. And go for it, and build, and we'll protect. Make sure that law enforcement.
Yeah, well, the problem is that what you'd end up with is something like Escape from New York. Where you.
No, that's what everybody.
No, you wouldn't. I'm just saying, you wouldn't. But
Snake Plissken.
Yeah. No, what I'm thinking is though that you're right. The people, generally speaking, these people are they're going to work and they're going to put it together.
Man, seriously, and if you were able to provide them with the basics of like a hashtag crosshatch road configuration, a couple of rudimentary wells, and electric power and internet or something. I mean, they would go
internet.
They would go, but yeah, put up a tower. They would go bananas, and I think you would see a revolution out there.
Or you could set up your little your little Indian trader station or whatever, and
Oh man!
and do cell phones and stuff, and
Right.
we take wampum.
That's it, man. Yeah, man. I mean, hey, that's what I would do. I would have a new city in New Mexico.
You can see the dollar stores all around the place.
Oh man! Seriously, there would be a strip mall right there, open up in no time.
That's right.
They would be, and like I said, look, if the Republicans would be so upset at that, then you have everybody who's coming in sign a waiver of benefits.
Oh, for sure.
You just say, look, you come on in, you can go to the tent
Well, that's
city.
what the paintball's all about.
This is your waiver. So, yeah, if you're painted orange, you don't get benefits.
We dip your finger, and if it's
That's right. Yeah. But anyway, so we're gonna see the whole thing.
okay, that's
Come to its
unless
fruition.
you got something else. We're about 5 o'clock.
Yeah. No, that's it. We're good. So, I guess we'll go to figure out how to go here back. So, dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun.
that's right, exactly. We're gonna get some bumper music, and thanks for the couple of you that signed in today.
Yes.
We're gonna tell your friends
Uh-huh.
because we're gonna be back here on Sunday at 4 o'clock
Yes.
with some more news.
Yep.
And maybe some of the stuff that is breaking today we'll know more about on Sunday, and you'll have our take on it.
That's right.
It's
That's
really
right.
the right take.
We've been super consistent this time around, folks. We've been doing this twice a week at 4 p.m. Wednesdays and Sundays for like a couple of months now, and we intend to keep it going. So our problem has been technologically, but it looks like we have now overcome everything with the new modem.
Yeah, the new modem's great.
So you should. It looks like 0 frames dropped, 0.0, same grade point average as Mr. Blutowski, and so.
That's really great, though. I mean, that new modem is like a godsend.
Yeah. So come back and join us and share, like, do whatever you want, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Well, what you do is you copy the link from your Facebook and put it on yours.
Oh, I think you just share it right over there. I think.
Okay.
So.
All right. Good.
All right. Thanks. See ya.